On today's episode of Gathering the Kings.
Anybody can be on a podcast if they have something that they are willing to teach and give information about. Whether you're the guest or the host, you're being platformed. In the past 3 years, we've booked over 1,000 interviews. This is the platform. This is where the cool kids hang out to so many people. And I'm just trying to help people understand you can go do this.
What's up, everybody? I'm Chaz Wolfe. I'm your host, Gathering the Kings podcast, coming back to you here today. Another king on the stage. Spencer Carpenter, my brother, my podcast brother.
Thanks so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, man. I'm glad that you're here. You are bringing a message that's actually near and dear to my heart, near and dear to why we even do this show. Tell us what kind of business that you got, man.
Yeah, so I'm a talent representation business for talented entrepreneurs, business professionals, and investors looking to get booked on podcasts. In the past 3 years, we've booked over 1,000 interviews for anyone from real estate investors to hedge funds to people that have top 500 in companies.
Wow. That was a quick but very impressive resume there as far as people that you've been working with. In essence, though, you're helping people get on shows just like you're right here on my show. You obviously find value in what you do because you're literally doing it right now. There's an art to guesting on shows as opposed to hosting. I love to guest, but it's different. You get to do a little different deal than host. And so we're going to get into maybe the value for the listener to get onto shows, maybe even use you to be able to do so. Before we do that, though, I want to go deep in Spencer for just a half second here. And I want to know what makes you tick. Why are you doing this? Why, after being successful, do you still push? What's the bigger picture? What's the deep-rooted why?
My thing has always been, I've been a supporter of talent. That's always been my job. I started booking concerts when I was 15 because my cousins wouldn't let me into their band, but I still wanted to help out. And so we were a little farm town, but let me just book the concert myself.
I love that.
I was never in a band. I was never the performer, but through that, I ended up having a 15-year career, promoted concerts, running a couple record labels, artist management, everything like that. But pretty much all along the way, I was always in talent representation. And then when COVID hit, I decided to shift gears and support a different type of talent. As I was looking at the podcast, I would look up people giving away tons of information. Just see, this is Joe Schmill investor with 300 followers on Instagram. I realized it's not Mark Cuban or it's not Richard Branson, but it also hit me that there's not many services out there helping those people.
Yeah.
And so I was like, let me go create something that can support these talented entrepreneurs. And the thing that really gets me going is when I can get them on a show. I was never going to get an artist on Coachella. I was not in that position, but I can still get clients on top 10 or top 5 or top 3 investing podcasts in the US and stuff like that. That's what gets me really excited.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I think that your angle of helping the maybe average entrepreneur, not average from performance, or that they're not extraordinary individuals, but just they're not household names, guys like me. And so the listener might find that funny because I'm the host of the show, but part of starting this show was I wanted to interview entrepreneurs who had been successful in the top 10% of success. Not less than 9% of all businesses do $1 million or more in their business. And so that's who we interview. We interview people who have been extraordinary in their business, but nobody knows them. That's because they have amazing stories. And we've had some incredible people here on the show that are well known, but by and large of the 400 plus episodes that we've done, they have been guys, what you're talking about. And it's actually great for them. The experience is great. The outward impact for their business, as well as just their authority, I think is great. I'm sure we'll get into that. But I want to stick to your story just for a little half second here. You made a pivot. You're doing the same thing, but completely different. And so why did you make the pivot? Obviously, COVID had a big part of that. What was the good decision in making that pivot? Why was that a good decision? You're obviously still in it. Maybe it is a good decision. Maybe you've determined it's not a good decision. I don't know. What about the pivot made the most sense is what I'm after.
Honestly, if you know anything about the music industry, it is rough. And people don't pay you and then still ask you to do more work. Working with entrepreneurs is very different. They pay you and say thank you. That just getting out of the egos around music and just backstabbing the bullies around that. I offer a service that is meant to treat them like they're talent and do everything I can for them. But also when there's a problem, entrepreneurs know how to figure it out. If they realize they don't have the link to the podcast, it got deleted from their Google or something. they know how to search their email and figure it out. Which other people don't know how to do basic problem solving. So I
Yeah.
really like this pivot. I get to work with a lot of really interesting people. I get to learn from my clients every single day. And I do truly feel that the people I'm putting out there and getting on podcasts are helping other people learn. This is a segment of the podcasting industry where people are here to learn. And
Yeah.
there's true crime and there's general conversation with celebrities and stuff like that. But what I really found about podcasts is that what drove me to it is that it took the on-demand aspect of Spotify, make it the long form content of Howard Stern and the ability to learn from audiobook. And I like hated audiobooks. I spent so much time in the car, but I did not enjoy listening to audiobooks. And so when I found podcasts, I felt I could learn a lot from someone in an hour and be
Yeah.
conversational. That was really powerful to me. And I like that I'm in a segment of the industry that is not just purely entertainment. It is helping people. Whether they do something with that knowledge, go and do the exact thing my client's doing or the host is doing, or it sparks their imagination to go do something else. That's
Right.
really big to me. I ran a music conference and festival for 8 years where the whole thing was developing artists. We were there to gather in industry leaders from New York and LA and Nashville and bring them to a small town in Pennsylvania so they would give away their knowledge to these people that wanted to turn their hobby into, it's
Yeah.
just an extension of that.
That's cool. Sounds a little bit like Gathering the Kings. It's interesting because you just talked about the value of podcasts from a listener's perspective. So I want to stick on that for a second. Eventually, we're going to drop the bomb on them and let them know that as a business owner, they should be getting on podcasts. And in fact, this is the service that you offer. But as a listener, I just got done working with a mindset coach, and we went through this whole extension of my daily visualization. And a part of that, as a person who believes in personal development and growth mindedness and always wanting to achieve the next level, I can't be a closed loop. I need to always be learning something. And so I have to put myself in a position, not only subconsciously every day of how I'm talking to myself, but then also be able to put myself actually in the position to learn. So to your point, podcasts are an amazing piece of that. But it was funny because in that conversation with him, he was suggesting this, that, and the other. I love audiobooks, but we were talking about podcasts specifically. And I'm like, dude, I'm on 6 to 10 podcasts a week with successful entrepreneurs. I get to hear their stories straight. So I loved how you said that you get to learn from your clients. Yes, the listeners get to learn from both us now, but even being a host or a guest, even like I've learned plenty of times being on someone's show and I get to learn about them even, or potentially just the podcast process or whatever. So there's just a lot of learning going on with podcasts. Would you agree? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely. If let's just say you're a CEO of an organization, you know that you don't want to be in the marketing person's seat. Like
Right.
if you go and listen to like just a few hours of podcasts on marketing, it saves you the time of reading a marketing book. You don't have to know how to run the Google ads, but you need to know what's effective so you can talk to your marketing person. But I think that this is a really good way for someone to become really well-rounded in all areas of business without having to put in the time reading books or courses on topics they don't want to be involved in. I find marketing so boring. I've set up Google ads, but that is like it. I do not want to go back and test them. I don't want to mess with it ever again. But I understand the need for it. Some of the tactics that are going to be involved so you can hire accordingly or give direction accordingly.
Right.
You can really get a handle on that stuff pretty quickly with 1 or 3 podcasts on that subject.
Yeah. Yeah. And to your point, there's a benefit of just searching podcasts and you can get probably as minute into the detail as how to run Google ads all the way up to high level marketing strategy or any other sector of the business, or like Gathering the Kings, where we're a little bit diverse and we're talking about stories about how the overcoming or the not overcoming moments. And so I'll use it as a little segue here. We just talked about a little bit of your pivot and maybe the good decision of using your talents and moving forward into another industry. What's been a bad decision that you've made practically inside the business that maybe we can learn from and stay away from?
I wasn't marketing myself enough.
You don't like marketing. You just told us that.
Because I don't like it. No, I was facing some imposter syndrome for a little bit. And so while I had booked probably 700 interviews at the time I decided to start doing my own, I hadn't been putting myself out there enough. And that I was new into an industry. And there are a few other people that do what I do, but they've done it much longer. I knew I was getting results from my clients, but I don't think I should have waited around as much. I don't like being in the spotlight a lot.
Yeah, it's interesting that you're taking not only just the awareness approach of, hey, I know I have to market myself. You also threw in imposter syndrome in there. And we all have felt it, maybe currently feel it, maybe on a regular basis, kick it to the side. What in that moment, because like you said, you'd already done this 700 plus times. Maybe the other guys in the industry had done it 7,000 times, but you had quite a track record. What is that inside of us that as entrepreneurs, because it does, it comes at us all and it tells us that we're not good enough or that we haven't been around long enough or we haven't done enough shows or we haven't helped enough clients, whatever the voice is, that negative inner voice. How are like practically did you overcome that?
I just realized that I had been put in situations where I was put on a platform speaking at a conference or something like that. People always end up at the end coming up to me and saying that they enjoyed what I had to say, even when I thought I didn't do very well. So I just had to get over it and put myself out there and just trust that as long as I'm being honest and 100% authentic, that it's going to work out. The way you get in trouble is by overpromising or talking about something that you can't actually deliver on. But if you can just be honest with customer or host or whoever it might be, and being able to acknowledge what you don't know, that's always goes a long way and people appreciate that.
So you're talking mostly about being yourself. So thinking about the history that you just gave to us there of, okay, I've already done 700, but yet I was still feeling this moment of, am I good enough? Like just reaching back into the cookie jar, as David Goggins says, and go, no, I know I have done this. I am an expert. And all I got to do is just be authentically me. And you just step forward in courage to be authentically you. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I worked through what my pitch is going to be. But it helped me realize I do know what I'm talking about. I do have a few things to contribute here to the
Good.
conversation that maybe other people haven't talked about, or they haven't talked about it in the same way. Don't forget that most motivational speakers out there are saying the same thing using a different analogy. I work with people sometimes it's their first time being on a podcast and they don't know what exactly it is they can contribute. Well, you're successful. So what is it that's driving that? And sometimes they are a thought leader. Sometimes they did develop a whole new system for something. And
Yeah.
sometimes they are just a really good case study on something that people already know about. For
Sure.
example, building and scaling businesses. Like every business and entrepreneurship podcast has to talk about that once a quarter. But you can't get onto the show and say, hey guys, we're going to talk about building and scaling again. You have to lead into it with a kind of a unique way. You have to give a case study that makes it sound sexy again
Right.
and lead them into it without them being like, oh, cool. Another podcast about scalability. I help people with that stuff all the time. And when I help them with that, it helps me also determine what it is I can contribute that is whatever lens that is slightly more unique than others. Like the other
Yeah.
companies that do what I do, they appeared to me to come from a publicity background. I come from a music background. I don't really know what that difference is in how I look at people other than I look at them as talent rather
Right.
than just like a client I'm getting publicity for. But
Right.
I think that it adds some value to the service that I provide.
Yeah. Yeah, I love the angle here because what you're saying is that you're taking your story, your whatever the trade is, whatever the skill set is that you have in the business, whatever service that you're offering. There is going to be other people that offer that same thing, or at least there should. If there isn't anybody offering what you do, that actually, like, you might not be in an industry. You're either early and good luck, or nobody wants what you have, and that's not good either. So it's actually great to know you have competition. Anybody that tells me that they don't have competition, I shake my head and say, think again, because you do. And then actually, what I'm hearing you say is that based on your uniqueness, based on your story, or maybe just your angle of the information, either how you've developed it in your own story or how you've been able to help other people uniquely based on your specific formula. That is then how your message comes across. Look, there's tons of podcasts on business, but there's thousands of people that listen to this show and love it. There's other mastermind groups or peer-to-peer groups, but my message resonates with some really great entrepreneurs who are part of Gathering the Kings. Yes, there are other groups, some of these like international organizations, Vistage and EO, like they've been around forever and ever. And they have tens of thousands of entrepreneurs a part of them. How am I ever going to compete? Imposter syndrome, right? No, I have a specific message. And that message is going to resonate with some people. And look, there's 8 billion people. There's plenty. Plenty for them, plenty for me. Plenty for you on a podcast, plenty, whatever. It's like now I go back to abundance mindset with my uniqueness, which what you're talking about. And I was like, dude, I can do this. You can do this, right?
You brought up David Goggins earlier. Some people like David Goggins, some like Andy Frisella, some like Jocko, some like them all. Same thing with other personal development. I knew people that loved Bob Proctor. I love Jim Rohn. I was like, Bob Proctor's so boring. Jim Rohn is the man. And then others are like, I'm going someone new. We're going with Tony Robbins only. That's what all this about is. You just have to find a way to connect with who your person is going to be. And it's not even necessarily you connecting with them, especially as a podcast host. You're just being you. You're putting it out there. They are connecting with you.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's talk about that, because this is what you help people do. Not only help them get on the show, but you're helping them with what that show is going to do for them. Like you said, I don't just see them as publicity. I see them as a client, as a talent. And so what is it like for someone, especially you mentioned earlier, maybe a business owner that hasn't been on many podcasts or doesn't get much airtime? Maybe they're introverted and they either don't want to be in the public eye or don't understand the value of being in the public eye. Talk to that person for a second. Why would they want to be on shows? What's the value of being on shows for them, for their business? Give us a little story here.
You brought up someone that's introverted. This is just a conversation between you and me. There are going to be other people listening down the road, but right now it's just you and me talking. And even introverts can do that, especially business owners. Solopreneurs have one-on-one meetings all the time.
That's right.
And I think it's also important for people to understand that while this is a form of media, you're not trying to put me in a gotcha position. The host is always trying to put out a good piece of content. This is wasted time for you if it's not good. So the host is always going to try and give you the best conversation possible. If they feel you're struggling, they'll give you time to pause, recollect yourself. They might throw you softballs so it's easy to, get it through. But like, that's just for the person that might be a little bit timid and having just some thoughts about whether or not they qualify. But keep in mind, if you get paid for anything, you are professional at whatever it is you do.
That's right.
Whether or not you're an expert, not sure, but you can still be an expert to a lot of people by knowing more than that. And so if you know even 10% more than the average person on the subject, you have something to contribute.
Yeah.
Maybe don't go pitch yourself to the biggest podcasts in business in the world with your limited knowledge, but you can go find some low-hanging fruit of newer podcasts or developing podcasts that can use someone with your subject matter. Yeah. You mentioned that this show has thousands of listeners. If I wanted to go speak at a business expo of some sort to thousands of people, it would cost me at least $10,000. I've done that for much less and got far fewer people. And they weren't like the right audience, I found out. But I can do as many podcasts as I want until I get in front of the right audience, and it's free. Yeah, and all I have to do is put in the time here. I didn't have to build out a presentation. You didn't ask me to put together a slide deck or anything like that. I was just asked to come on here and talk about myself. Who doesn't want to talk about themselves and what it is we do? This is such a low barrier to entry for anybody that is willing to open themselves up and give the information. And it is about giving. You're not there to have an episode that's like an infomercial on your business. You're there to give information away and teach people.
Hey, kings and queens, Chaz, Wolfe. I want to talk to you about something that's super important to me. We put a lot of time and effort, we meaning myself and my team, into this podcast, into the content that goes out every single day. And if you have been getting any sort of value or insight from this, we want it to be able to reach other business owners too. So we would love if you would like, comment, share, leave a review, post, share again, all of the things on social media, on all the different platforms, or even on the podcast mediums of Apple and Spotify. We would love to be able to get our content into more hands, more entrepreneurs, so they can grow their business as quick as possible. Together, we are building a community of like-minded entrepreneurs who are committed to growing their businesses to new heights. So let's do this. Let's help each other. Let's help each other grow. Podcasting is huge for what you're talking about as far as getting in front of people. You mentioned being in front of thousands of people at no cost, and that's a big deal. Talk about for a second here how an entrepreneur who maybe doesn't or isn't currently building a personal brand, but maybe wants to or has never heard of that before, and maybe how podcasting or guesting on a podcast really allows them to start telling their story and start working out that personal brand. And how do those things go together? It's a big deal.
I mentioned I don't like marketing. I don't like being in the spotlight. And so I'm not going to be the person to take my phone and put it in front of my face and make like Instagram videos all day. Like, I'm not that content person. It's not comfortable for me, but I will go and build my brand on podcasts with a one-on-one conversation because that's a little more
Right.
natural to me. I know for a lot of people, especially if they're not like in their 20s, building their personal brand is associated with being very outgoing on social media. And that's one area of it. But this is an area where you can be building your personal brand without having to do that legwork of coming up with content and like feeling insecure and feeling
Right.
weird while building all that stuff on social media. I also just think it's good from an SEO standpoint because if you're on a bunch of podcasts, they're all going to have unique titles. They're going to have unique show notes. It's going to be unique conversation. And then when people are searching for you on Google or whatever, the SEO results are all unique. You could be someone that goes and pays for one of those Yahoo Finance articles that goes out to 300 different news outlets, but it's all the same title. It's all the same story. And most of the time it's a news outlet they've never heard of. But if you do a bunch of podcasts instead, again, it's unique titles, unique shows. The name is going to sound more legitimate most of the time versus the Milwaukee Press when
But
you're a business professional in Pennsylvania.
yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of value there, personal branding wise and building your business and how those personal brand and business come together. Also, too, I've had obviously hundreds of guests now, but that are experts in their field. Some which have never been on shows, some which have been only on a few. And I'll tell you that the response I get at the end, after we hit the record button, we have the conversation, and then we end, is like, "Oh man, that was fun. Like you did a great job." And they're telling me great job. I'm like, "No, dude, you did a great job." Because really what it looks like is just this, like you're talking about, just back and forth conversation, being authentic. I'm curious about your story. The listeners listening in going, I wonder what Spencer's got to offer. I wonder about his story. Because if they believe that like you did it, then they can apply that same belief to themselves, that courage, and say, I can do it too. And to your point a few minutes ago, like someone who's listening today could work with you, get on shows, and even though they may not feel like, I'm the expert in my field, you still have knowledge that other people can pick up from. And it's not about being an imposter or being like, I'm trying to say I'm something that I'm not. If just say what you are, just say what you are and be authentic about it. And I actually think that there's plenty of people who will listen. And what I have found actually is that there's a lot of listeners who listen to this show, which I had no intention of at the beginning, that are huge, that have done way more business than me, but yet that have either been on the show or who have listened to the show and reached out and they have complimented me and want to learn about what's going on. And it's like, dude, if they even knew, it's an incredible feeling to know that like they're so much further down the road, but yet they want to collaborate with somebody like me. You know what I mean?
It's twofold. Whether you're the guest or the host, you're being platformed. I go to concerts still with friends and they're like, I still backstage. And you don't understand. Backstage it's just like an empty space. There's nothing happening back there, but people still want it. No matter how much I explain to them, it's like not, it's literally just, there's just a cake of water there for the
Yeah.
musician.
You get to watch the back of their head instead of their face.
Yeah, you get to only hear the drums and you can't hear the vocals or the guitar or anything else. And they're like, I still really want to go back there.
Yeah.
This is the platform. This is where the cool kids hang out to so many people. And I'm just trying to help people understand you can go do this. Like anybody can be on a podcast if they have something that they are willing to teach and give information about. And you get all the benefits.
You said that you've been somewhat new to working with entrepreneurs in this business. Obviously, you weren't working with them before. You've worked with plenty since. But have you found, like I found, that no matter the skill set or the success level, however you want to define that, I guess, an entrepreneur is always willing to share, or at least the good ones, right? Like it doesn't matter if they're at 300,000 in sales, 3 million or 300 million. Because I've talked to people at all stages, and for the right ones that at least have the right attitude about business and life, the ones that I want to be around, they are more than willing to help anybody at their level, above their level, below their level. That we just want to give as entrepreneurs. That's typically what makes us great entrepreneurs. Have you seen the same thing?
I'm not working with some Wall Street hedge fund person a lot of times. I'm working with someone that started from nothing and built up to whatever area of success they're at that changed their life and gave them the shot at generational wealth. And most of my clients did not start with a silver spoon. And that's not to take away from people that did. It's just that there is usually something inherently giving about their nature because they understood what they went through to get to where they're at. And those people are oftentimes very willing to give away whatever they can. I have plenty of people that say, give out their email and their phone number. If you have a question, just reach out. Maybe my course is right for you, or maybe you just need me to answer a question. But like they are almost always very open to communication with people that heard them on a podcast.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so true. Hundreds now in, and many guests that have just given their direct email or cell phone. And you might think that's a little surprising, but I've done it now long enough to where it's like, nope, not at all. And most people, unfortunately, don't reach out. But the ones that are hungry, they're more than willing to reciprocate to that person who's hungry. I got a question for you. You've been in and out of a couple different industries regarding talent are, pretty, like you said, high strung, busy. At least the music industry is, I'm sure. But I know business is the same. So how have you managed to be obsessed? I use the word obsessed around all areas of life or dimensions, kingly dimensions, as we talk about Gathering the Kings. But there's more than just business to life, right? There's family, there's marriage, there's your spirituality, there's health, there's all this other stuff. How how have you practically been able to focus on those other areas while growing your business?
This was a way for me to finally have success in one thing that allowed me to then focus on all those other things I was been collecting in life, especially as I was getting a little bit older. I realized that I needed to not just be in grind mindset all the time. I was able to start focusing on some of the things that are important and dedicating more time to working out or dedicating more time to just like cooking at home so I could eat healthier than I had been when I was on the go all the time. And then obviously spending time with my partner and being able to build up more of a domesticated life instead of always on the go and always grinding.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that the cart can't come before the horse before the cart, whatever that phrase is. But it's like what you said, the answer was that you grew or you got into a business at the right vehicle that allowed for there to be some inflow or income. And I think a lot of people maybe want to skip over to that king stage. There was a warrior stage that you're talking about where you had to grind and just figure it out. You shouldn't at some point though have some sort of a realization where it's okay, now I have a little bit more flexibility. It doesn't mean that you quit focusing on the business. It just means that you can go deep on some of those other things in life, many areas that you depicted. Spencer, I want to ask you about, since you've been on so many podcasts, you've helped so many people be on podcasts. Is there a favorite podcast that you have? Or is there other resources that you would recommend for the people listening here today that they need to go check out?
My favorite podcast is Bigger Pockets. I discovered podcasts as a way to learn about real estate investing while I was driving. And so that's the show where I learned that you can get really valuable knowledge from people you've never heard of. And most of the
Yeah.
world has never heard of. And they either have
Yeah.
incredible stories or knowledge or resources. Sometimes it's their mindset. I've learned so much from people on shows like that. I know that's a real estate focused show, but you can find a
Yeah.
show like that in just about any industry. And
That's right.
they're clearly interviewing the best of the best in their space. And you can get a lot from that.
Yeah, I love that. Real estate, first off, we've had plenty of real estate investors, but I think for the most part, most entrepreneurs are interested in real estate and passive income. And so that's a great recommendation. Bigger Pockets is a great deal. I used to be a Bigger Pockets. I don't even know. Remember, I had access to all the special equations and yeah, there you go. Yeah, I used that to actually close a couple of my first deals. And so a great resource for sure.
Half of my clientele is real estate. The other half are other types of entrepreneurship. That's actually where I focus.
Yeah, there's a lot of different sectors of real estate. You can live in real estate forever and ever and never get bored. Even somebody who's listening today, to even have a couple of different lanes of real estate, pretty unique. Spencer, I got one last question here for you, brother. I got to know, if you had the opportunity to reach back into time, tap the younger Spencer on his shoulder, and whisper in his ear, what would you say to him?
Start a podcast booking agency. It's people need it. I
Yeah.
got in 10 years into podcasting or something like that. It's people need this. They need help. And that can be said for other things as well. If you can come up with a service that is helping people in an area that's desperately lacking, there's massive opportunity in that, whatever it is. Sometimes it's not as easy as just reaching out to people via email to get them interviews. Sometimes it's building a whole new software system or some type of logistic infrastructure. But there's a
Right.
lot of demand out there for solving problems.
Yeah. Love it. I love it. How can the listener find you? Number one, just to connect with you as an entrepreneur, or if they need to be booked on shows and start telling their story all over the place, how can they find your services?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn, Spencer Carpenter. My Instagram is my name, Spencer Carpenter. Outlier Audio is also the name for our Instagram. And if you just go to outlieraudio.com, you can schedule a call or just see a little bit about what we do. Always happy to just connect with people to chat. So yeah, feel free to reach out.
Love it, man. You've been incredible. I appreciate what you do. You're right. It is a service that's absolutely needed. I hope that the listener reaches out to you because they themselves, they should stop consuming my podcast. That might be crazy as a host. That I want you to, no, I don't want you to actually stop, but I want you to start creating your own story, start documenting, start telling your story, start getting on podcasts, and you can use my man Spencer to do that. Thank you for being here, good sir. We wish you nothing but blessing and success and all that you put your hand to here in the year of 2023. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you for listening to Gathering the Kings today. I hope that you were able to pull out a few nuggets to go apply into your business right away. More importantly, though, I hope that you're realizing that it takes more to be successful than just being by yourself, doing it all on your own, carrying the weight all by yourself. What I have realized, not only in my own journey from multiple businesses and multiple different industries, and now interviewing over 200 or 300 other very successful 7, 8, and 9-figure business owners, is that it's tough to do it alone. And so Gathering the Kings exists to bring together successful entrepreneurs. In fact, we are putting together 1,000 kings, specifically who are grateful but not done. We're intentionally assembling kings who fight tooth and nail for their business, family, and communities. And here's what we believe, that in the pursuit of excellence in those areas, that it ignites within us the responsibility to govern power and forge a lasting legacy. So if that relates and resonates with you, and you know that you need people around you, sharp, qualified, other very successful business owners, I want you to go to gatheringthekings.com. I want you to take a look at what we're doing and see if it makes sense for you to be part of our pursuit to 1,000 kings. Talk soon.